The girl from the dust. In the far reaches of the Nomori Sands, where the sun painted the land gold by day and fire red by dusk, there stood a village known as Tendo. It was not marked on any map. Its homes were carved from baked clay and covered with palm thatch, and its people spoke in hushed tones when the wind howled too long. For they believed that the desert carried voices, the voices of spirits with unfinished stories. In this village lived a quiet man named Jabari. He was neither the strongest nor the loudest, but he was known to be the most patient of all the herders. Where other men beat their camels into obedience, Jabari simply hummed, and the animals followed. The children whispered that he could speak to the wind. The elders never denied it. But Jabari carried a sorrow that grew heavier each year. As a child, he had lost both his parents to a sandstorm, one of those thick, blinding ones that roared in like an angry god. Their bodies were never found. Only his mother's necklace was discovered, caught in the thorny arms of a desert shrub. He had worn it every day since. The footprints. One morning, as the sun crawled out of the dunes like a sleepy lion, Jabari led his herd across the southern ridges, near a dried-out well known as the Thirst of Noma. It was a lonely place, avoided even by the vultures. But that day, something caught his eye. Footprints. Bare. Small. Perfectly spaced. No sign of where they came from. No sign of where they led. The sand had no other markings, no camel hooves, no animal tracks. And the prints were fresh, untouched by the wind. His head began to shift uneasily. A camel groaned and refused to step forward. Jabari narrowed his eyes, the sun catching the glint of his mother's necklace. Something ancient stirred in his chest. Curiosity. Fear. He couldn't tell. She came with the storm. That evening, as the horizon burned with the orange of coming dusk, a dust storm rose. Tendo's villagers scattered indoors, closing shutters and whispering charms. But Jabari remained outside, watching. And there she was. A figure emerged from the storm, walking straight through the gusting sun as if it were nothing but mist. Her robe shimmered in the wind, its color hard to describe. Some said it was silver, others said sun-colored, but Jabari thought it looked like smoke when it dances over fire. She was Amia. Her eyes were dark like a moonless sky, and her voice, when she spoke, seemed to skip across the wind like the ripples in a quiet pool. I am Amia, she said. Jabari blinked. Are you lost? I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, she replied. The wind howled louder, then stilled, as though it were listening. A village divided. Jabari brought her to the village. The elders watched silently. Children peered from behind their mother's legs. One man whispered, "The red moon is near." Spirits wear faces then. Grandmother Anza, the oldest in Tendo, warned Jabari plainly. Love no one who walks out of a storm, she said, especially if her feet leave no prints. But Amia smiled, cooked, helped with water, and whispered kind things to crying babies. Her laugh was soft, rare, like she had just learned how to do it. She made Jabari feel lighter than he had in years. It was like the necklace on his chest didn't weigh as much. Within weeks, the two were inseparable. She'd walk with him beyond the dunes, listening as he told stories of the stars. He made her laugh. She made him quiet, which was how he knew he was in love. A shadow missing. It happened during a hot midday walk to the well. Jabari looked behind them. The sun was blazing. His own shadow stretched like a snake across the sand. But Amia. No shadow. He blinked once. Twice. Looked again. Nothing. The sun struck her back and bounced off like water on stone. He said nothing. His throat was dry, and it wasn't from the heat. That night, as she slept curled beside him, he stared at the wall. The lantern flickered. His shadow danced. Hers. Still missing. The whispers began. Over the next few days, small things started to go wrong. The water pots cracked for no reason. A baby cried through the night, staring at something no one could see. And Jabari began to dream of sand, filling his mouth, eyes, lungs. He'd wake up gasping, the necklace burning hot on his chest. One morning, Grandmother Anza found him outside, sitting silently. "She doesn't belong to you," she said. "I don't care," he whispered. "That's the problem." And yet, despite all the signs, Jabari held Amir's hand tighter. Even when he saw no shadow. Even when the wind whispered her name when no one spoke it. Because some men fall in love with fire, even when they know they will burn. Whispers in the wind. Days passed in Tendo, but the village no longer felt like it was breathing. The goats, once stubborn but loyal, now kicked and cried when led near the central well. Dogs whimpered at night and clawed at doors that had no reason to open. Chickens stopped laying eggs. And then came the rot, sweet potatoes blackened in the earth, and the fig trees dropped their fruit unripe. The villagers grew uneasy. They spoke in riddles again, the way desert folk do when they fear the truth might hear them. And most unnerving of all, the old well dried up. No explanation. Just bone-dry silence. The women blamed the drought. The men blamed poor planting. But the wind blamed nothing, yet it grew louder every night. The tale of the bright spirits. One morning, as Jabari sat outside his hut sharpening his old blade, Grandmother Nyari approached him. She moved slowly, leaning on a walking stick carved from desert ebony, her eyes cloudy but sharp beneath her headscarf. "Do you know," she began, "what comes when the joy leaves the land?" Jabari didn't look up. "The wind, I suppose." She laughed without humor. "No, boy. Bright spirits. Wives of silence. Lost women who were taken too young or died with a heart still full. They return when they are called by longing or foolish love." Jabari's hands froze on the blade. They steal joy. Because it reminds them of what they cannot have. "You think she's..." Nyari waved a bony finger. "I don't think, boy. I remember. These stories aren't told to entertain. They are told to warn. And you? You've welcomed a storm into your bed. The disappearance." That night, Jabari awoke alone. The bed mat beside him was still warm, but Amir was gone. The lantern had gone out, though he never left it that way. He threw on his cloak and stepped into the desert air. The moon was full. Not red yet, but nearly. The wind rolled low over the sands like a warning drumbeat. He saw no footprints, but he followed the slight shift in the dunes. As if something had brushed through them without quite touching. She was headed north, past the village's edge. Toward the burial grounds. The altar of bone and sand. No one went there after sundown. The sands there whispered too loudly, and the rocks wept salt. Jabari moved like a shadow himself, sticking close to the acacia trees until he saw her. Amir, alone, her back to him, standing at the center of a crumbling altar made of sand and bone. Long animal bones, sun-bleached. Human shapes, almost, but no skulls. Just ribs and long femurs arranged in a spiral. She was whispering, but the language made his skin crawl. Not a language meant for ears. It sounded like the rustling of leaves in a tomb. Like wind through a hollow reed. Like the voices his mother warned him about when he was too young to know better. Suddenly, Amir stopped. "I know you're there," she said. Jabari stepped forward, heart pounding like hooves. "What is this? What are you saying?" She turned, slowly. Her eyes were not angry. Just tired. "The wind knows what you love, Jabari," she said. "And it is jealous. A test of love." He felt like a boy again, alone in a storm, calling for parents who could not answer. "I've seen things," he said. "You cast no shadow. You speak to the wind. You vanished in a storm and left no trace. What are you? Amir stepped toward him. Would it matter if I told you? Would you stop loving me? I don't know, he whispered. Then maybe you're not ready for the answer. Lightning flashed far in the distance, illuminating the ridge. Amir raised a hand and pointed to the west. The hollow winds, she said. That's where I come from. A place where voices go when they have no one left to haunt. You want answers? Then follow me there. Jabari looked in the direction she pointed. There was nothing. Just sand. Just wind. Just fear. If you follow me, you must never look back, Jabari. Not even once. You must trust me, even when the wind screams. Even when your bones beg you to run. And if I do, then you know who I am. And what you've invited into your heart. She took his hand. It was cold, like stone left too long in the shade. And together, they turned toward the hollow winds, the hollow winds. The moment Jabari stepped past the ridge, the world changed. The sand beneath his feet grew pale, almost white, like ash left after a fire. The sky overhead was no longer black, nor blue, but a pale gray, like someone had wrung the color out of it. No sun. No stars. Just a faint, pulsing light from nowhere and everywhere. Amir walked ahead of him, her robes trailing like smoke, feet still not touching the ground. She never looked back. And Jabari, remembering her warning, kept his eyes forward. But everything behind them had gone silent. Not the peaceful silence of night. This was unnatural silence. The kind that pressed on your ears like water. Even the wind, which had howled since the day he met her, had stilled completely. The land of shadows. As they walked deeper into the hollow winds, the landscape stretched endlessly. Dunes that didn't shift. Trees that weren't trees at all, just tall, skeletal shapes that swayed without wind. And shadows. Jabari saw shadows moving along the dunes, slipping in and out of view, though there were no bodies to cast them. One passed across his feet and felt cold as a wet cloth. Don't follow them, Amir said, without turning. What are they? He asked. They are what's left, when people forget. The Dusk Keeper appears. Finally, they reached the heart of the realm, a vast hollow in the dunes, circular, silent, and smooth like a stone bow. At its center was a towering figure draped in torn veils, a mass of fabric and wind, with no visible face or limbs. Only two burning eyes of white fire blinked slowly beneath the layers. The Dusk Keeper. You have trespassed, the voice came, not spoken, but heard, inside Jabari's head. You are not of this place. Jabari stepped forward. I came for the truth. For Amir. You came for what is not yours. Amir moved between them. Her voice was no longer soft, it was filled with sorrow and fury. He deserves to know. I am not a lie. You are a memory, the Dusk Keeper said. A promise that was paid in blood. Amir's story. The sand beneath Jabari's feet stirred, and images bloomed around him like ghosts made of smoke. He saw a village, much like Tendu, long ago. Dying of thirst. The people wept. Prayed. Offered sacrifices to the winds. One by one, animals were given. Then food. Then a girl. Amir. She was tied with white cords and left at the edge of the desert as the storm cloud swirled. The wind took her, and rain followed. The village was saved. But the girl. She was never meant to return. Jabari fell to his knees. You were given to this place. Amir stood beside him, tears forming. I never wanted to stay here. I didn't know how to stop wanting life. Then I saw you, Jabari. You reminded me of what I lost. The bargain. She belongs to the hollow winds, the Dusk Keeper said. And yet she clings to your word. That imbalance has a price. Then let me pay it, Jabari said. Let her be free. Let us be together. There is a cost, the spirit said. The wind must always take something. I give anything. Then give your shadow. Amir gasped. No. You don't understand. But Jabari stepped forward. Take it. The Duskkeeper raised a veiled arm. There was no movement, no sound, but suddenly, Jabari's shadow peeled off the ground like mist lifting from the earth. It shivered once, then drifted up into the darkness. The wind returned, soft, cold, and wrong. Jabari staggered. He felt lighter. But not in a good way. Something was missing. Something important. The Duskkeeper began to fade. The deal is done. Let the hollow winds whisper no more. And like that, he was gone. The aftermath. Amir touched Jabari's face. You don't know what you've done. I did it for us. You gave away the only proof that you still belong to the world of the living. Jabari reached behind him. The light hit him full in the back. But nothing followed. No shape. No shadow. He was there, but also not quite. Then we can be together, he said. Amir didn't smile. She looked at him like someone looking at a dying flame. Yes. But you'll never be the same. And with that, they walked back toward the edge of the hollow winds, Jabari's feet dragging in the dust. No shadow behind him. Only the long, shifting echo of a man who had given too much for love. The shadowless man. The sky over Tendo was golden when Jabari returned, but the moment his feet touched village soil, the birds stopped singing. Not just paused. Stopped. As if the desert itself was holding its breath. Jabari walked slowly, his cloak fluttering in the wind, Amir nowhere to be seen. He should have felt relief stepping back into his village. Instead, he felt like a stranger in his own skin. He passed a group of children playing near the elder's hut. One of them looked up and screamed. The rest followed, scattering like ants from fire. A woman fetching water dropped her calabash and backed away. Jabari turned to ask why, and then he saw it, no shadow. Again. Still. Always. The fear spreads. By the next morning, Tendo buzzed with dread. People whispered his name with the same tone they use for plague. Then the signs began. The crops, those that had survived the last dry spell, began to blacken overnight. A goat was found twisted and stiff at dawn, eyes wide in terror. A boy woke from sleep with a scream, pointing to the wall. He was standing there. No face. Just wind. Even the dogs avoided his hut, curling up on the far edges of the village. The only one who didn't hide was Grandmother Nari. She hobbled up to his doorway one evening, when the sun hung like a coin on the horizon. You came back, she said, squinting. But the question is, what came back with you? The hauntings begin. That night, Jabari could not sleep. Amir came to him, not through the door, not through dreams, but through the wind. Whispers filled his heart. Soft at first. Then louder. Some nights, she wept, begging forgiveness. Other nights, she smiled, arms open, murmuring his name in a voice so sweet it made his chest ache. But one night, one terrible night, she whispered. You gave your shadow. But something else was taken too. Jabari jolted awake, sweat pouring down his back. The room was cold. Too cold. Then he saw them. Footprints. Wet, bare footprints. Leading from the door, straight to his bedroom. And again the next night. And the next. No one ever saw who made them. The balance is broken. On the seventh day, the village met at the fire pit. They spoke in circles, as they always did when fear was too big for plain words. He walks in daylight but casts no shape. His goats died with tongues blue like frost. I saw him talking to no one, laughing, crying. Nyari stood and raised her voice. He has broken the pact. They all looked at her. The hollow winds are sacred. What goes in must not return unchanged. Jabari has returned, wrong. The warning. That night, Jabari stood by his fire. He didn't light it. There was no warmth in flames anymore. He saw the footprints again, but this time they came from inside and led outward. As if something was leaving him. Piece by piece. Then, the wind spoke. Not Amir. Another voice. Older. Colder. You gave your shadow, it rust. But still you held on to life. The scales tip. We come to collect. Jabari dropped to his knees. His breath fogged in the air. In the middle of a desert. He looked up to the stars, and for a moment, they looked back. The cleansing begins. Nyari knocked on his door at sunrise. She carried a bowl of ash, a gourd of water, and a rusted bell. We must cleanse the land, she said. And if the land refuses to be cleansed, we cleanse the cause. The villagers gathered. Children with painted faces. Elders with talismans carved from driftwood. Dancers with iron anklets. Drummers who played not for rhythm, but to shake the spirits out of hiding. A fire was lit. Not to warm, but to burn away what didn't belong. Jabari stood at the edge of the circle, eyes sunken, clothes hanging loose on a body that now looked half-remembered. He didn't fight. He didn't speak. Because he knew. The Dusk Keeper was coming. And this time, it wanted more than a shadow. When the wind whips, the moon rose like a wound in the sky, round, red, and pulsing. It was the night of severing, a ritual older than language itself. The villagers of Tendu gathered in the circle, wearing ochre and white. Bells chimed on wrists and ankles. Drums thudded low like a heartbeat trying not to panic. At the center of it all stood Jabari, hollow-eyed, shadowless, and silent. Grandmother Nyari led the ceremony, her arms painted with symbols so old only the wind still knew their meaning. Her chants cracked the silence like lightning splitting an old tree. We call upon the spirit of wind and bone, she intoned. We asked the desert to close the door that was left open. But the desert had other plans. Amir's return. As the fire burned higher, a gust of wind blew through the circle, though the air had been still all day. And there she was. Amir. She walked calmly between the villagers, her robes trailing wisps of sun behind her. Her face held no malice, only deep, aching sorrow. She looked at Jabari and spoke, her voice barely louder than the breeze. You must return my name to the wind, Jabari. That is the only way to close the wound. What does that mean? He asked, voice dry with desperation. If my name remains in your heart, she said, I will never truly leave. And neither will he. A hush fell. Because they all felt it then, the pressure, like something enormous was drawing near. The Dusk Keeper's final offer. The fire snuffed out. From the edge of the village, a ship emerged, towering, robed in tattered veils of night and storm. The Dusk Keeper. Eyes like burning holes in the dark. No feet. No face. Just presence. You have broken the balance, it said, not with sound, but with thought. You took what belonged to silence. And silence has come to take. The ground trembled. Amir stepped forward. He chose me. The Dusk Keeper turned to Jabari. Then he must choose again. Return Amir. Lose her forever. The world will be whole. Join her. Become wind and memory, forgotten by all, but bound together for eternity. The villagers held their breath. Some wept. Others turned away, unable to watch. Jabari stared at Amir. His voice cracked. I'd rather be nothing with you, than live without you. And he stepped forward. Amia's choice. No, she said. He froze. Amia looked at the Dusk Keeper, then back at Jabari. Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with light, like stars trapped in a dying flame. You gave your shadow to be with me, she whispered. And I would have kept you in this storm forever. But love doesn't trap. It frees. She placed her hand gently on his chest. I was born from sacrifice. But I don't want to take any more. The Dusk Keeper said nothing. And then, Amia lifted her other hand. From it unraveled a thin thread of light, delicate, spinning slowly like a spider's silk. Jabari's shadow. She pressed it to his back. The wind roared. The ground shook. And suddenly, it was there again. His shadow. Small. Oh. Real. Amia turned to the Dusk Keeper. Take me back. You return willingly, it asked. I return in love. The wind weeps. A gust swept through the village, dry and sharp as a blade. It coiled around Amia like a cocoon of light and ash. She didn't scream. She didn't resist. She just smiled at Jabari, and for the first time, truly looked at peace. Then she was gone. Not vanished. Returned. Like a whisper on the wind, finally finding its silence. Aftermath. The fire rekindled on its own. Nyari wept softly into her hands. The villagers knelt. The land sighed. In the days that followed, the goats stopped dying. The crops brightened. The babies laughed again. Jabari remained quiet, but changed. Oh. Grounded. And shadowed once more. But sometimes, on moonless nights, when the wind was especially soft, he'd walk beyond the village to the edge of the dunes. He would close his eyes and whisper her name one last time, not to keep her, but to honor her. And the wind. It would weep. Epilogue. It is said that every blood moon, a traveler may see a figure walking across the sands of Tendo. A woman in wind-colored robes. Feet never touching the ground. But no longer searching. Just smiling. Cyclone the end.